Hi, and welcome to the second hour of Mind Shifters Radio. Today is Tuesday, June 17, 2025. And we'll there's people coming on in, but I will say welcome, Michael, as I admit, welcome, Susan, welcome, Camie. We had an awesome session yesterday. I'll let Michael talk about that a little bit.
Yes, welcome. Glad you're here. And Camie, are you on the road? Are you driving?
I'm not hearing you, Michael. Oh, wait. I guess it'd help if I turned on my speaker.
There you go. That would probably help a whole lot. Hey, all right. So, Miss Camie, are you driving? Are you able to hit your mute button and say hello?
I am driving.
Ah,
I was
well,
trying to find.
Go ahead.
I was trying to find the thing while I'm driving.
The well, be button. Safe. Be safe, and I'm delighted that you're getting to go out and have some time with your son. That sounds like it'll be fabulous.
He actually told me he can't wait to see me. I haven't heard that out of his mouth in a few years.
Oh, that's nice.
So, yep, it was really good. Sobriety has its gifts for sure.
Yay, fabulous.
Yep.
Congratulations. So anything exciting to share in your world? I assumed that you were driving yesterday when you didn't breathe with us, but we had a great session yesterday.
Yeah, I really didn't want to miss that, and I need to get out there in time for our birthday. Mine and Alex's birthday's on the same day, and cool. I need to get out there before then, so I had to. All right.
Well, safe travels and blessings. Anything else on your mind?
No, not at all.
No? All right.
All right.
Be blessed.
Thanks. All right.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye. And seeing as how it's just a couple of us, I'm going to just throw out, I was planning to call you, Susan Fluick, to check in. You know, you'd had a lady that showed up for the StillPoint yesterday, and someone else that you had said were planning to come to the intuitive development workshop. And I was wondering if you had started to do the Codependence intensive yet. And if you hadn't, or even if you had, I was going to suggest that perhaps if those two ladies were seriously thinking about joining you, that you might, if they went ahead and registered, then they would have access, because we're also giving the Codependence intensive, the self-study free with the workshop. Mm-hmm. That maybe the three of you start working together on that. That might be an interesting project for you all to take on.
Yeah, I know. I don't know about Andrea, but for sure Lindsay wants to come, and Lindsay's amazing. She had a commitment. She originally, we did the mind shifter for her, but she had a commitment realized after, but she will participate. But she plans to come in November as well. She said she'll definitely make it happen. And I'd love Andrea to be there, but that I'll talk to her. But definitely I'll bring forward that just let them know we're going away on Friday, so I'll get a chance to talk to them about that.
I had been emailing with Andrea, and she said she definitely planned on coming in November. And she asked me for some information on how to get started with the work and things like that, and told me a little bit about it, and was interested in the Mind Shifter Monthly. So it was a pretty lengthy email, so I was excited to hear from her.
Yeah, so they're both really, they're, I want to get everybody there. My entire circle should be there. I mean, this is coming home to God. It doesn't get better than that. So yeah, but I will bring it up and continue to bring it up. And some, I have some that would be interested, but they're financially in hardship. So I don't know. A couple would she'd like to be there, and I see obviously it's her perception, but she struggles. But so I want her to come too. And her name's Deanna. So I'll bring it. I have my Course in Miracles group tomorrow that I lead, so I'll be bringing this all up.
Cool. And if somebody has, we all have bills to pay, so there's somewhere we have to, have some cash flow, and that's one of the places we get it. But it's not about the money. So if you got somebody that's interested in doing it, we'll work with them to break it up, whatever way makes it work, that makes it doable for them. It doesn't matter. It takes a couple of years. I don't care.
Yeah. Okay. I'll bring that up tomorrow. Cool. And it's very interesting because the breath work, in fact, I'm doing worksheets like crazy all around money this morning. I can't believe like lots of stuff around. I didn't even realize overwhelm with money. Absolute overwhelm. And it goes back to my mom, because my father would bring me gifts and not to my brothers, and my mom would always take them away. And so there's some weird discordance pattern around that I can't, not receiving. I'm always feeling overwhelmed around money. Like and whether it's in the bank account or not, there's just this constant feeling of it. So yeah, I'm trying to unravel that.
So the sense I get is that, perhaps, the abundance of receiving from Dad, and then some of the conflicts perhaps with the interactions you've shared with me that you had with him. But then following the receiving comes the taking away, the disappointment. So there might be some layers of disappointment to clear up.
I can feel
around receiving.
Speaking, yeah, very much so. So that'll be, So
that'll be a good one to clean out.
Yes, I know.
And if you get them, if you all start on that, doing the codependence, that's something certainly, as with Susan Bingham's group, I'll drop in once in a while and support and answer questions, that sort of thing. And maybe even, if you chose to do that, to lead that, then we could tune some other people who want to do the codependence self-study into that as well, and kind of turned into a study group. Would be cool.
Yeah,
I know you're ready to teach, so
I definitely know. Okay, I'm just
cool.
And it's all about receiving. Thank you so much, Michael, and everybody here on the call. Thank you. Okay.
Delighted. All right. And Miss Susan Bingham, how are you doing, young lady? Checking in. I know yesterday, the day before, are big days for you. So
yeah, thank you so much. I'm doing fine. I'm working on the mind shifter in short spurts. Mainly watching things. I had
just observing.
I had some very strange responses to doing that and doing the breathing, as I told you, and I'm just way, way far away from the capability of the other breathers in the group. But I feel as if that's okay. And I'm loving doing my project. It's just taken all my focus. So that's about it. I don't have much news because of that.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, holding the space, I certainly had fun yesterday. I thought it was a really sweet group. And
it was.
It's one of the challenges for people when they first start doing StillPoint breathing is oftentimes people will try to get the energy of the StillPoint going, and on their own it just doesn't happen. Just can't do it. And I've been asking to be shown what that's about, to understand it more, because I've watched for years that people came to an intensive and, had this huge breakthrough doing StillPoint breathing. One of them was like, I breathe for hours and nothing happens. And I don't quite understand or know what that is. Part of it perhaps is an unconscious unwillingness. I'm not sure what's behind it, but I'm certainly pleased that, once COVID hit and we did the first intensive where we did StillPoint online, and we got, pretty much the same results as we got in person. So it's nice that happens, and we're holding the space.
You've added something really good in that. That first the mind StillPoint session on Zoom. Tim and I did it as best we could. Tim fell asleep. He's on such heavy meds that he can't be still without falling asleep. He'll fall asleep sitting in the chair. So, but I was trying to do the right thing, all that mental stuff that isn't what you're asking for. And Jeannie might speak up and say, Roma, you know, in fact, I remember this, Roma, do this or that. And I would think about Roma, and then I think, well, so I'm with Roma right now. I've got to get back to myself. And I found it an interruption. But this time you said, if we say something to one of you, it's take it in as if it's addressed to you. That made a lot of difference.
Yes, that was something I was guided to do with this session.
Very
So,
good.
yeah, I think it did. I think you're right with that. Yeah. Rather than it being a disturbance, always talking to somebody else. That was just something that came prior to when we were planning this session. It's like, this is something you need to do, Michael. So glad
That was
it
great.
struck the right way.
It did, and it also made me realize over and over again that we're one big body doing our breathing, and we are, the other thing you said the other day, not that you're taking in air, but that you're receiving breath.
Yeah.
That also was helpful. So good stuff in those two. Yeah.
Well, you know, it's interesting. There's a story in Genesis that I've talked about. You've heard me speak about it on the radio show. It's probably been a while since I talked about it, but it's interesting that you know, there are two distinct creation stories in the book of Genesis, and one of them speaks of the creation of the human being, male and female, and it's a collective creation of. It speaks of created them, breathed into, and you know, the second creation is where the breathed into part comes. So we hear about, you know, in the first story, there's no mention of dust or dirt or soil or Adam or Eve. It's just the creation of the human being.
Mm.
And then, and people have suggested maybe Moses was just getting a little senile and didn't realize he'd already written about it. But as though he hadn't said anything, then it talks about the dust and the earth, the soil, and the creation of Adamos. And there are two distinct words. Adamos is the red clay. And in the first creation story, it speaks of Nasha, which is being, spiritual being or soul. And then it marries the two. And it marries the two through the breath. You know, if you read after the creation of Adam, then, or the making of Adam, perhaps we could say, then we hear, and the Creator breathed Adamos into, or breathed Nafsha into Adamos. And it was with that breath that we became an incarnated being, a living being. And and then of course it talks about him as the Course in Miracles so perfectly points out. And then it says Adam fell into a deep sleep, and it doesn't say a word about him waking up anywhere until, you know, all the way up into the New Testament, where it talks about being awake in Christ, lost in the mind of Adamos, the red clay, you know, carbon-based memory, whose number is 666, and waking up from that. But that the marriage of the two, the created being and physiology, is done with the breath, I think is so key in the whole process.
Mm. Yeah, I've never gotten those two Genesis stories straight. It would be good to go back and sort them out.
Yeah, it's an interesting piece to read, and I don't think Moses was senile at all. He was telling it exactly the way it happened. Human beings were created in the image and likeness of the Creator, spirit beings, non-physical. Then comes the physical, and then the breath carries the being into the so-called physical.
Mm.
And so here we are now, incarnated or living in this carbon-based memory system, which has a mind of its own and knocks most of us into a deep sleep pretty quickly. And the waking up process can be quite a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me, the StillPoint process is one of the ways of one of the most powerful ways of weakening the noise of the voice of carbon-based memory, the drama, the trauma, the fear, the rage, the guilt, the pain that tends to, I think, attract most beings inside of their own form, tends to lock them into listening to that voice, listening to that noise. And, to me, the genius of the forgiveness process is that it peels the fingers away from our face of that, that non-being voice that takes us over and allows us to be able to step back, become the thinker apart from the thoughts, the feeler apart from the feelings, the actor apart from the actions, prompted from carbon-based memory, and waking up, then turning the red clay, the carbon-based memory system, into the footstool it was designed to be, that it was there to serve us in our process of creating. So consciously creating. So delighted to be on the team with you. And, one of the thought when you mentioned that Tim's on so many medications, yesterday we had talked about the Avicen, and that might be a reason to see if you can retrieve the Avicen and get him on it on a regular basis, because, I still use it anywhere from an hour to 3 hours a day. And what I'm still noticing is that symptom after symptom after symptom is disappearing. And the regular use will tend to sweep through his structure, and whatever it is, whatever the energetic patterns are that demand, at least in the medical mind, the drugs, can very likely be swept away and maybe liberate him from some of that. Just a thought.
Wonderful. Yeah, well, he was complaining about feeling bloated and gassy. And I said, have you ever thought that you might have developed a food allergy, namely gluten? Because I'm off gluten for years. I was really sick when I ate bread. He went off a week ago, and in one day, he said, oh my God, I feel so much better and so much less anxiety.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Well, gluten reaction causes a lot of weird things, including anxiety in some people. It certainly did with me. So anyway, that's one motion in the right direction. And I know
that's
when
awesome.
you get older, medications are more potent. They affect you differently and more than when you're younger.
Yes.
I'm always trying to nudge him, but I have to let him be. This is a discussion we've had for years. So
yeah, well, holding his space, but he may, if he could get his hand in there on a regular basis, maybe do 1 hour or 2 30-minute sessions a day, he might notice a big physiological difference. I mean, I've had that feedback from so many people.
Wow.
This might make the difference.
Michael,
Cool.
you I noticed when people were doing their breathing, they seemed to go into a very high mental state. In the Hindu tradition, they'd say in one of the high chakras. Is that so?
Well, my take would be that, especially when one gets to the still point is where literally the mental state is gone. It shuts down.
Mm-hmm.
There is no operation of what we call the mind. So what happens when, people, as they do their work, oftentimes reach a point where they're in what I've kind of come to define as process point, where they're just ready to move through things and move through them. And, it's kind of like, here would be a metaphor for it. I take the garbage out to the garbage bin, and I open the bag, and I take the old eggshells out, and I take the apple peels, and I take the wax paper, and I take I don't know what that is. I throw it. Now I go through every piece of trash. And when we're processing things with what we call our minds, That's kind of what we have to do. I go through the whole story, and
Yeah.
my great grandfather did this and this happened to him, and we got the whole story. When you're out of your mind, when you're in still point, the mind doesn't operate. That's where, I can recall very clearly the day I discovered still point breathing for myself. And this is probably 45, 46 years ago. And I was used to having someone there to support me in breathing. And I had some stuff come up, and I just knew I needed to breathe, but there was nobody around to breathe me. And so I went ahead and just, started breathing. And I became aware after a little while of that I wasn't breathing. And I can remember my mind coming into the play, well, you're supposed to be breathing. This is what you're doing. It's a breathing session. It's like, but no, there's something else going on here. And it was when I realized that my breath had stopped. It wasn't that I was holding, it was my breath had stopped. And when it stopped, I became aware of what sounded like a tape recorder on high speed fast forward. And I can remember that I kind of freaked out a little bit. It's like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Slow this down. And it slowed down, and it was just like I was shown this whole process. This is being released, this is being released, this is being changed to this is being changed. It was very much like a computer program running. And I went, okay, let it rip, and let it rip. And it was probably an hour or so that I was just kind of in and out and in and out, but pretty much continuously in a still point. And I kind of freaked out a little bit again and said, slow this down again. And I was shown once again that, just the number of things that were being corrected in me. And that's when I started to understand, I'd been trained in classic breath work. And if you went into a still point, you got a jab in the ribs and you're told, breathe, you're going unconscious. And it seems like going unconscious because the mind can't keep up with the rate of spin, can't keep up with how much is moving. It's not a mental process. It's happening in a superconductor state, high speed, fast forward. And so it's not a matter of you have to, pick through every piece of garbage. Again, in the metaphor, I take the garbage bag out and I put the whole thing in the trash bin. I don't have to go through every piece of it in still point. And so it's going to a different level of process when you can get the energy of the breath really moving and get to the point where that still point is initiated. And you don't have to process every little piece of whatever's going on. It's just a mass dump of what never belonged.
Well, it would be impossible to go through everything. It's wonderful we can bypass it that way.
It is awesome. I mean, it's amazing. It's just that so many people I've worked with, and they go in and, oh, nothing is ever going to handle this trauma that I have in my life. Nothing could ever take this away from me. And they go through a still point session, and an hour and a half later, it's like, what was I so upset about?
Yeah.
I feel great. What? Yeah.
It's amazing too that when you were going through that breathing by yourself, you had enough brain cells to get enough information to know what you did. Afterwards.
Yeah, I had been doing this work for several years at that point, so it wasn't that I was a neophyte at it trying to figure it out. It was, it was just a natural progression in the work that I had been doing for several years up to that point. And to me now, what is very apparent is that developing the willingness, and when the breath moves, that we go into that superconductor state where things can move high speed, fast forward, and waking up, that statement where Adam goes into a deep sleep. If we're still asleep in Adamos, then we still believe every lie, everything our mind tells us, all the hostility and fear stories, the generational patterns, we still believe all that crap. And that's where the forgiveness process comes in, of weakening that voice of unconsciousness and then waking up beyond it and relegating the body mind unit to its proper place as your servant, your footstool, your instrument of creation, not the source of your life or
Right.
the source of the stories you tell yourself.
Well, the use of the tools has had that effect on me. I can watch my mind do the old thing and I could say, I don't, no, get out of here.
Yeah, I'm not buying it. Yeah.
All right.
You're the footstool. You're not the master.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
it. That's it. Exactly. So very sweet. Very cool. Well, anyone else that didn't have a chance to share yesterday with your breathing? Anything to share with us? Camie, you got a thought for us?
I was just going to say, it's interesting that you say that, Susan, about the upper chakras, because in my last quantum StillPoint session, I actually saw the veil of the temple open, and my third eye was just buzzing like crazy. And then I was just surrounded in this. And I don't think I told you that part, Michael, when I went through
Was
that.
this in the tune-up we did on your quantum still point after the intensive?
It was.
Oh,
Yes.
that's awesome.
Yes, it was very cool. And I had forgot all about that until Susan mentioned the upper chakras with the breath work.
Interesting.
And yeah, it was very interesting. The other thing that I wanted to say is, I breathe alone a lot, but I really wanted to be there yesterday. There really is something to doing it in a group.
Yes.
It's, I guess when two or more are gathered.
That's the point. Yep.
Yeah, because my breath sessions at the intensive and, of course, the quantum breath sessions were just beyond anything I've ever experienced alone.
Right. And the practice is one that's designed to be used for yourself, by yourself, ultimately, to do anytime there's anything up in your face. And it is a practice to get to the point of, and again, I don't know exactly what the factors are. Willingness, I think, is one of them. Am I really willing to let this veil open and look at whatever horrors might be there that I'm in resistance to and don't want to deal with? But ultimately, it's a tool we are each capable of getting that energy going and stepping into that high speed, that non-resistant superconductor state where things just move high speed and I don't have to fish through every piece of garbage that I'm throwing out from my generations.
Right. Yeah, it's phenomenal. I don't, just my opinion, I know all the other stuff is interconnected, but I feel like the breath work doing StillPoint is the most awesome tool.
It is.
Yep. It's the thing that really changes things. But they all work together, so I can't minimize the other ones.
Yeah. Yeah, each one's got its place.
Yeah.
But I mean, literally, when you really step into the breath, you're literally dealing directly with creator energy rather than stuff stored in the mind from the past and trying to figure it out, trying to work through it.
Yeah.
And of course, that's why on the worksheet, there are several reminders to breathe, because that's what really moves the energy.
And they're at key points in the worksheet process too.
Yes, at the places where it's probably where hits the fan.
Yes, they
Yeah.
absolutely are.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
I just
I
wanted to add that.
acknowledge you, Camie. I acknowledge you, Camie, and it's nice to hear the lilt and the smile in your voice with the layers that you went through. And I acknowledge you for the way you've hung with Matt and Matt shifting into this, doing his work and having, healing conversations and all that. That's just awesome. That really speaks to the quality of space you've been holding, and the layers that you were both willing to allow to move and go through and come out the other side. It's nice to hear your voice with that liberty in it.
Right.
So nice
Me
work.
laughing again. That's
Yeah.
something you haven't heard in a while.
That's
Except
it,
for
exactly.
laughing at myself. And
That's what I'm acknowledging.
yeah, it's just amazing seeing Matt. I mean, just 180 degrees. He is Matthew, I should say.
Right. Yes, I have to remember that.
He's been inspirational to watch. It's been incredible how quickly he has picked it up and just bam, bam, bam. And well, I never thought about that I was a part of creating that space.
You were a big part of creating that space. I think your willingness and that you kept, efforting, not always perfectly, but efforting going back to that space of connectedness and back to that space of love, that you really entered that practice. And in the face of some pretty heavy duty stuff, you just kept going there. And that's, I think, been the key, one of the big keys for the shift to be able to take place. So that's a gift we can give each other.
Yeah. It's amazing. I would have never thought that intensive would do so much for him. I just would have never, because I remember my first intensive, and I guess the difference
now, mind
is
you,
too,
this is not his first intensive. It's his first time
true.
he's come to a workshop with me, but you and he have had a few intensives over the last few years.
I was going to say that he's heard me talk about the work for years, and he'd been to a workshop before, I don't know how many years ago. I think it was 2018 or 19. But
19.
And then listening to the radio show, but it just popped. It's like, boom, there it is.
Well, and one of the things that I think the fact that you've held the space so deeply, and one of the things that he shared with me during the intensive was his memory of the opening that he got in StillPoint. I think that's something that he, with all that came up and all that was moving, he was able to hold on to that memory back in 2019 when he did the StillPoint session in Birmingham, and he got it, he tasted it, and you've been feeding it to him since then, and I just congratulate you and acknowledge you.
Even before then, from the very beginning, but he didn't have any idea what I was talking about.
Right.
I think, he thought I was a little crazy. So, yeah.
Oh, well.
Well,
nice
thank
work.
you, Michael. Yeah.
All right. Delighted, honored.
All right. I'm going to jump off of here.
Can I say something, Michael?
Go for it, please.
I just want to say, Camie, just congratulations for that, having participated with you in that intensive and also seeing stuff in my own history play out. And really important to acknowledge what you're uploading into the cloud of humanity. So it makes way for distortion like that. It makes me want to cry, actually, for all the masculines and the part that Matthew's playing and you're playing to grid in the divine feminine and the divine masculine, the truth of who we are. And, I could even experience it there when those darker spirits come in, and we all saw it there, right? I saw it in myself.
Right.
And then also in Matthew, demonstrating the same way that I did to Dr. Ryce, right? So yeah, just, and then to continue and know that there's the other side of the tunnel, no matter what, and knowing the truth of God, regardless of
Yes.
playing out, and just staying in the light. And even when Dr. Ryce challenged me and said, you know, you're talking about, when I went to that dark place, you're talking about wanting to be in that higher space with God. Yeah, so just gratitude to you for doing that, and also to be, you know, a witness in my story. And I want you to just go and have a great time, like we talked about at the session, right? To really celebrate you and your son on the same day.
Absolutely. I am. It's just, life is wonderful
Good.
living in Rockma, you
Awesome.
know, living. And thank you. And you know, you brought up the divine feminine and the divine masculine, and I've been looking at that a lot, and that has helped me so much in looking at what my looking at my part in creating um, the chaos that was created by not being in the divine feminine.
Mm-hmm.
That was just so helpful, and I just want to thank you so much for that.
You're very welcome. Very welcome.
Yay. Well, and Susan, with what you just said, it reminds me of a quote from Carl Jung that really fits here, I think, for all of us. And what Carl Jung says is the healer teacher is not just working for a particular patient, but for him or herself, as well as his or her own soul.
Yeah.
And in so doing is perhaps laying an infinitesimal grain in the scales of humanity's soul.
Yeah.
Small and invisible as this contribution may be, it is yet an opus magnum.
Yeah.
You know, to me, Carl Jung, understanding that, God, I would love to spend some time in that guy's energy field, to have that level of insight on.
To just ask, you just
Yeah.
ask that he's there, and you can ask, as you know, your frequency would easily be able to perceive what he has to offer.
Oh, I thank him often and have many conversations with him.
Yeah. And I said to you at your intensive, like your level of consciousness that would allow you to perceive what came through. I mean, it's, that's a testament to the work that you've done over lifetimes, not just this lifetime, obviously, because there's no way you would be able to have that level of awareness and perception without doing the work. You wouldn't have been granted that knowledge. So I just am so grateful to have found you and manifested you in my reality and your beautiful wife.
Nice to be sharing with you.
Yeah.
There's one other quote that goes hand in hand with Jung's quote there too, and it comes from Horace Mann, and it kind of ties in but gives a different slant on the importance of each person doing their work to the whole. And here's what Horace Mann said. He said, "Be ashamed to die unless you've won some small battle for humanity." Like, fulfill your purpose.
Yeah.
Do what you're really here for each person to go beyond what the generational patterns are and what carbon-based memory says, and how kings have brainwashed into believing that we're supposed to fulfill their purposes, but really to open and tap into the real purpose that each of us has as human beings.
Yeah.
And to give that gift is just beyond comprehension.
Yeah, absolutely. And even, the Course in Miracles today, again, the one today is salvation comes from my one self. The thoughts are mine to use. It's just releasing all the falseness that isn't us, and trusting in the truth of being in the still point. Like in life, you get to practice that every day, to be in stillness and allow the truth to come into this field, and letting go of all illusion of this story. And we're, as
It's
we
what
know,
we're designed for.
we're committed. I'm committed. Like I'm committed. It's no matter what,
Got it.
I'm committed.
Cool. Joining you in the commitment
No,
and
you are.
recognizing.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. 2000%.
Yeah.
And I mean, literally, we're each designed to continually experience ourselves as this conscious active presence of love, the created self, and the whole definition of this salvation, the whole definition that so many people have gone down insane roads trying to be saved from something, when no, it's not about being saved from anything. It's about discovering, honoring, and bringing into Adamos, into this red clay, who you are. Who you are is the solution. And each one that enters this realm as conscious active present love opens the gateway a little wider, so that each person who's yet to make that journey, their journey will be easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see I think you said this, right, that creation and experience happen simultaneously, and spirit feeds through the spirit in us, which feeds into the spirit of all of humanity. And everything you see, it is spirit experiencing itself in every moment where creation and experience reveals. And we have to break free of the carbon-based data of the made-up story, so we could actually be in the true creation of what God intended in this beautiful Garden of Eden, of which is
yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Michael.
And that it was we who pooped all over the garden, and we need to clean it up.
Yes.
That's what the forgiveness process is about.
I know it's crazy. Every time I do, like sometimes, like I just did just now when we were going, you brought up the disappointment. Oh my God, I just did worksheets sitting here just sobbing. And then a lot of times too, when I'm doing the worksheet, I'm yawning like crazy. I can't stop yawning. But today's was a lot of tears. So thank you. Like just lots of whatever to release.
Opening the space to just take the breath to the very depth of that issue, and just letting the conscious active presence and power of the truth of who you are fully enter your physiology, so that it is just thrown off, that all of that is just, cast away.
Yes.
Transmuted.
And I can feel there's a deep ache in my sacred heart right here, like a deep. So I'll just keep showing up, keep doing the it will release, and it's and so it's all
cool.
Just honored to be here, and honored meaning, just the love of God and the grace of God that brought me to this moment. I told you this, I think I said, and I want to just let everybody know on the call. I mean, since 2011, I've been asking for that. I want to see the truth and be the truth. Just sticking to that, right? Every day I said that, every day. And then I saw at the workshop, I was there through your reflection, that the answers are right here. And this is, the breaking free of this human, the spirit to break free this human structure, to hold the presence of God in this space. It's, wow. And so that's just a testament to never give up, like to thrive in the moment of the healing, and just face what comes up, and knowing that Rachma is always with us. And also Rukha Kucha is driving the process if you allow it, and then just life and feel safe in life, that we really can rest into the truth of life and the truth.
Yes.
So
bringing heaven to earth in a much more meaningful sense than the old time religion idea, but literally that we have the ability to open this veil that has blocked the truth that is us, and by opening that veil, really arriving as that presence of love in a way that, until humanity was created, it was never seen. Love entered the world in a new way. I mean, we watch animals, and the animal has her kittens and her pups or whatever, takes care of them, and it's clear what the energy is. But that love now has the opportunity to enter the world in a conscious way, through this human form, and to bring the next, I mean, we don't know yet what the next level of creation is. It's waiting to come through.
Exactly.
Once we do this piece of work, now that we've turned toward, not turned away from the pain and the trauma, which many people want to do, but rather turned toward and embraced the creation that's ready to come through and to become the vehicle, the instrument of that, and bring it into the world, and the willingness to be transformed in the process, to me, is just like, what a privilege. I mean, phew.
I know, yeah, and what you said the other day when you had your still point and you saw the darkness and then the lights, that you saw the ancestors that were holding the light, and that you were willing to face all of the pain that's to be able for that healing. And I believe the mind of man has never been here before. Where we're going, the consciousness of humanity has never been at this place, in this this illusory world. So, and as we break free, in each one of us that holds spirit in our human structure, to allow spirit, then all the lights are connecting. We're one big brain, and then we get to just, yeah, and then God is connecting all of us, those of us that can hold it. And so that's going to break ourselves as well as humanity free, to release the illusion. And then we return.
Exactly.
Right, we return to God, like that in the Course in Miracles I've said before, right? We're on a journey without distance to a place we never left.
Yeah.
And we know that's the thing, the knowing, and you said that too, about
being here consciously.
Yes, and the experience. No one can ever take away, once you have an experience of knowing, no one can take you off that. That's
Yes.
the key. Once you know it, and even when we all get downloads, when I know something, I know it. Nothing's going to take me off that when it's directed by spirit. So. Yeah.
Yeah, and getting rid of the addiction to carbon-based memory it's a big deal.
It is a big deal. Yeah, it is a big deal. And I can't, when I realized the story that my mind is telling me is not true about myself, especially, and it was all based on corrupt data that was passed down by my power person, but also past lives likely.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even have the awareness to perceive it any different. It broke free at your intensive, that I actually, holy cow. And when I got to share with the group and what I was thinking and being over responsible for everybody, and it wasn't even needed, or that story that my mind was replicating over and over and over. Yeah, what a gift to have, to really break that free. Yeah. Now we see what gets revealed in this beautiful story of creation.
Being freed of anything other than the lived experience of love is monumental, and it takes a significant amount of work to clean enough darkness out of carbon-based memory that becomes a possibility, that we can actually step into the lived experience of that.
Yeah. And you and Jenny are such a demonstration of that in the divine feminine masculine. You hold it well. So if we can perceive it in you, it must be within us. And I didn't
Smoke and mirrors.
do that thumbs up, by the way, that just came. So I did not
smoke and mirrors.
I did smoke and mirrors. So we're seeing ourselves in our holographic expression. So
exactly.
Alrighty, thanks.
Sweet. All right, blessings. So we've got about 10 minutes left, and we've got several folks that we haven't heard anything from recently. What's on your mind? How about pushing that mute button, saying hello, and just sharing a little bit about what your experience is at this point, what's going on for you?
If nobody's going to push their mute button, maybe announce about the intensive and the specials that are good till August 1st.
We could do that, sure. Yeah, we're going to do another 9-day intensive. This is going to be a little different one, however. Well, we'll do, because it's part of every intensive we will do the still point breathing process. We will do the Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop, but this one's going to be a practicum on intuitive development. The primary thrust of the workshop will be experiential in working in a setting with a partner or with the group and getting feedback on being able to get a sense of the actuality that's happening in the space without recourse to the physical senses or the mind. So it's a very practical, down to earth, intuitive development workshop. So we're going to do that in November. And as Jeannie said, until August, is it August 1st, sweetie?
Yes.
So till August 1st, anybody who registers, there'll be, as we did with this last intensive, there'll be free registration to the self-study Codependence to Interdependence intensive. That's normally a 600, somebody goes to the website and wants to buy that course, it's $600. There are 89 hours of video in that course. It's actually 2 live Codependent to Interdependence intensives. So there's all the teaching, all the question answer processing work of those 2 intensives. And so that's someone who, wants to come and do the November intuitive development. They could start, right away with their intensive doing the codependence work, and then they'll be at a whole new level for doing the intuitive development in November. So if you're interested in that, or you know anybody that might be interested, would appreciate you sending them a link to the workshop, and maybe you can just pop the link in there if, so it's available. And then the second thing, aside from that registration for the intuitive development, or pardon me, the Codependence to Interdependence, will also be including all 20 of our workshop videos, a streaming link to, why is this happening to me again, healing through relationships, communication. Did you hear what I think I said? Purpose, personal power, and commitment, empowered to heal, naturopathic keys to health, the whole series. So there's 20 different workshop videos that are included, and the meditation wellness to stillness. So that's all part and parcel of registration for that intensive in November. So if you want to do that, you could drop Jeannie an email, and her email address is JEANIE, Jeannie at whyagain.org. So if you want to do that, if you drop her an email with your phone number, then we'll be in touch to set up registration and get you started. You could, anyone who does that can go ahead and do the personal code evaluation from the Codependence to Interdependence intensive. Get started with the intensive right off the bat, and it's a self-paced, self-study process. But with the fact that we're now in June through November, that people a chance to really do some gut work from that online intensive experience and be ready to lift to the next level in the intuitive development. So if you're interested in joining us for that, drop Jeannie a note. Make sure to include your phone number. And of course, there's also, if you're ready to take your work to the next level, the Quantum StillPoint Personal Intensive is something I'm doing here in Bristol, Virginia. So it's a 3-day or a 5-day process that the person who wants to do it will come here, and we'll do 3 or 5 days of Quantum StillPoint. It's a training and personal intensive work that is intense. It's everything that I've learned over the last 50 years and experienced, and in particular the crux of it that really takes it beyond just the still point breathing into quantum still point is the physiological realignment of the antenna that has to occur in order for us to really be attuned to that energy field in which we live, move, and have our being. It's a tough thing to break through without getting the physiological shift. And it's something that's more intense than it's work that I was trained in my early medical training, like half a century ago. When I think about that, it's pretty freaky. but it's something that I have never done in intensives because it's just too intense and too personal a piece of work to do. So if anybody's interested in doing that, then drop Jeannie a note and open the conversation. Beyond that, any thoughts for anyone else? Then what I'd like to do is just invite you to tap into the energy from yesterday of breathing. And I'm going to ask you to just allow your breath to be connected, allow yourself to just get settled into that space. And as you do, imagine that this, whatever way you would visualize it, this barrier that we've all built. We were born and bred with it already in us, and we've had the world modeling, building this veil. You know, and they said the veil of the temple must be rent in twain, torn in two. They weren't talking about a purple curtain in a church. The temple is your body-mind unit. The veil is the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious. That veil is unnatural. It's unnatural for us to have an unconscious mind. And that veil is built by holding the breath. And so I'm just going to invite you to just take a moment, if you're in a safe place to do that, not if you're driving, of course, but allow yourself to just tap into your breath, tap into any place that there's tension in your physiology, and breathe into that tension point. If there's anywhere that there is pain in your physiology, imagine, although of course you're taking your breath in through your mouth as you're doing this, but imagine that you're actually softening the place where there's pain, and you're actually allowing the breath to enter your tissue structure there. And you just let the breath go to that tissue, soften it, convey the safety of opening to whatever's there. And allowing yourself to embrace whatever it is that needs to move. Embrace that in your breath. And of course, extending the idea beyond just the breath into recognizing that what you're inviting is what the ancients called the Holy Spirit, or Rukha. That you're inviting this feminine elemental force that when you're ready to turn it over will undo the effects of your errors. And will teach you the truth. Literally, you will be given direct, interior, specific instructions for your part in the correction process. The only requirement, the only thing you need to do to deserve that is to recognize that the Creator saw fit to put the correction, the breath, in you. No other requirement. No standards to be met. You were given literally the breath of the Creator. And all you need to do is let it in. Softening. Wherever there's tension, softening. Allowing the breath to go in wherever there's tension, softening. And know that you're safe, you're supported, and there's enough love to open everything you're ready to let go of. Appreciation and blessings. Take care.